that what should Prime Minister talk to President Biden? Now, if India is wise, it will take lesson from Germany and Japan. United States destroyed both the countries in the Second World War, yet went out and poured money and rebuilt those countries. Now, India's biggest need is not fighting war. India's biggest need is fighting a war of employment, fighting a war for food. We have 500 million people who have no job, and they are between 25 and 35. You think India needs a war? I don't think India needs a war. India needs to take their savings and put that in growing the economy. And Pradeep ji has once confirmed me that if economy is taken care, we can have the defense. Right now, not even 5 million of India's budget goes to defense. On the other hand, China is 150 million. United States, 680 million. We don't have the money to spend on defense. So economy is first and last. And who can help us grow the economy? Only one country, the United States of America, where we live. So I believe that we should start focusing on economy. And if the Prime Minister wants to focus on economy, he has to do everything to grow the India economically, bring more investment into India, more all the technological progress this country has from India, bring it back to India. So it is very important to talk about a mutual defense, because once you take care of security, you can spend time and money and energy on economic growth. But right now, India is not in a situation to focus on economy. The population has grown to 1.4 billion. The unemployment is 500 million. 300 million Indian goes to bed without eating anything. We cannot afford to put our energy on defense. So
Shekharji,
we need an umbrella. And that umbrella can only be found with the United States.
thank you, Shekharji. Let me ask Ramesh, because the point is well taken that you are asking for no war and focusing on economy and growth and getting ready for having the right muscle to go to the next stage. Ramesh, you are trying to act in that direction. Can you hear me?
Please unmute yourself, Ramesh.
Ramesh.
Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. Okay. Thank you. We have met all the prime ministers on a one-to-one basis, small gatherings. And Narasimha Rao, we met him also. And he made a very interesting point what Shekhar is saying. He asked all his generals, if China attacks us, okay, what is our capabilities? And all his generals said that give them the keys to Delhi, quote unquote. Okay, sorry. I don't think India has progressed to the point that after Narasimha Rao made that comment. Right? So the only I always say, never lose an opportunity for crisis. Okay. And at the present time, there's a crisis in US-India relationship because of Ukraine. This was a testing ground. Can they count on United? Can United States count on India? Can India count on United States? And India, the reality is, did not come through by even 5%. All right. Now, what the part of the problem has been is that what United States is also made mistakes. Okay, that the comfort level wasn't there. There was a lot of advantage during the civil nuclear deal for the first time, and the United States dropped the ball. Okay, and basically, bureaucrats and politicians don't want to do transformational things. There are only few people, leaderships who want to do it. And the area that United States dropped the ball is that we got, McCain was our champion. We got him excited about NATO +6, okay? Now, let me explain. There's been theory that, oh, are you going to be part of NATO? It is not. This is an American law. I want everybody to understand that. And even Delhi and people are mistaken, all right? It's an American law that says that NATO countries, plus there are others non-NATO countries, 5 countries that get the latest technology in the defense area. They don't have to wait go through the committees and Commerce Department, everything. They will get the latest technology in the defense area. All right, whatever they want. Okay, there's no waiting period, and with that comes intelligence and other things. It's a starting point that United States saying, other than saying India is a major defense partner and all this lollipops that they start making. For the first time, we have an opportunity to change the law in the National Defense Authorization Bill, and we do it in the NDAA because everything passes in the NDAA 2024. We have the best opportunity at the present time. All right. Now, what we were able to, it was all different reasons. First, it was Hinduism, was human rights, or it's not the right time, everything. Those were all the excuses that were made by the American side, the key leaders that were there. So now with this crisis that is there, like I said, where everybody has realized that they really need India, and they can't they can't give them lollipops, and they can't take them for granted, all right? And this is the right opportunity to do it. And that's why we were able to do is, and we have learned also, US-India Security Council has learned how the sausage is made over here, how the things get done. And over the time, 6 years, we have learned that. So we were able to put that in the China. Fortunately, and this is where Indian Americans become very important. This is why it's a key thing to get our kids elected in the House, write our checks, support them. What I did is that the China committee opened up, and Raja reached out to me, and I got him 3 votes: McGovern, Meeks, and Kathleen Clark, who is my congresswoman. We got the support, and he got elected as a ranking member of the China committee. With that, okay, instead, we sit down over here, we moan and groan about every minor thing about our own DNA. Oh, he Roe didn't do this, Kamala Harris didn't do it, and this person didn't do it, and everything. The reality is, at the end of the day, they are the only people are going to stand on India when times are tough, because their chummery is always Indian American and will be, right? I want you to know that. So we were able to put that into the China committee, okay? Nobody knew about it, quietly put it in, okay? And it got unanimously passed as a suggestion with other 14 things. India was part of the suggestion. Now, once that got passed, okay, now we can go to the key people, which we have next 2 weeks. I've set up meetings with them. That look, it is a bipartisan thing. Let's put it in the NDA 2024. All right, and they will have pressure. Not only that, we are pushing. Now we realize that every person, every chairman in the NDA has one ask. They have to ask one thing. Nobody refuses that ask. And the reason is that because if you refuse somebody's ask, he will refuse your ask, your goodie. Okay, all right. So we have now pushed. Raja, with his chairman, is going to ask that it be put in the text of the NDA, not as an amendment, in the text of the NDA on the House side. And now we have Mark Warner's people are saying, and always, he's a chair of the committee on the India committee, but they have never asked in the NDA. No chairman has asked one ask. His staff has said he will ask. I haven't got from his lips. I'm meeting him, and I will ask him for the one ask. And once this ask is done, and it is put in the body of the NDA, then this will be passed. Okay, and this is our law, by the way. It has nothing to do with India. All right, India has nothing to do with its law. It's our law. We have to change it. But we did get a clearance 6 years back from Parikar, was our biggest supporter. We got the green light from that. Dowal, we got the green light from that. And the PM got the green light from that. And when we had our small meeting of 5 people that we met him, he said, they're trying to sell us toys, the defense. He says, I mentioned to him that it's not that they don't want to sell you the latest technology, but it's our law. Unless our law is changed, you will get promises and you will never get that. And he understood at that, okay? So these are the champions of that. But now you have also on the Indian side, the bureaucrats that made it, are making it difficult. And also, believe on the American side too, okay? 6 years, I know the American bureaucrats, okay? They're no different there. So this is what I'm saying is this is the opportunity that we have to do it. Now, what Shekhar has come out with a great idea is that this is an opportunity now that the principles are over here, everything is softened up, and everybody is looking at the way the reality is and the way the India played the cards in Russia. American, here's the opportunity to go beyond, which is what we are having a conference over here, by having a security relationships more and more. Peace through strength, all right? Okay, and everybody mentioned the Marshall Plan and other countries, so they don't mention that we built China. Okay,
Yes.
Let's not forget, and we can build India also.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you. Adityanjee, may I ask you to look at the issue from what should the Prime Minister do? I think Shekharji has talked about the larger issue. Ramesh has brought in the details of how policies are made. If you can bring in how Prime Minister should handle this, that'd be great. Dr. Aditya.
You have to unmute yourself, please.
Yes. So let me first of all thank Shekharji and AIPF for inviting me for this forum. This is the first time participating as a panelist in this forum, so my thanks. The previous 2 speakers have brought very profound issues. To a large extent, I agree with their analysis, but there's always another viewpoint. And I think we need to keep that in mind. From India's perspective, the chief focus at this point in time is to build India's comprehensive national power. And that requires actually domestic reforms, which have been going on for the last 9 or 10 years. And Prime Minister has worked very ably trying to dismantle certain regimes, trying to change certain attitudes, reform practices, to the extent that, the bureaucracy has been also chastened by the Prime Minister. There was people who were fired and all that sort of thing. Over the last 20 years, India and US have gone in a very positive direction with each successive administration. Till 1998, there was no defense trade between India and United States. Now, United States is the 4th largest provider of ammunition and weapons to India. We have gone through various stages, but as Ramesh mentioned, that there were artificial barriers, whether it was human rights, whether it was goalposts set about Hinduism or other domestic issues about India. There was a talk about, not signing the basic foundational agreements, 1, 2, 3 agreement. So experience is that there has to be some change in thinking. These are 2 large countries, very proud countries. One is a civilizational country, and other is the sole hyperpower. There will be some give and take. There will be some mutual understanding. I can tell you that from India's perspective, the attitude you are with us or against us, that attitude will not work. And in the past, that has been the basic barrier to furthering bilateral relationship. And as I talked about comprehensive national power, India would very much like help from United States. And that help would be in building up India's economy. That in international arena may mean United States supporting India's entry into APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Conference. In fact, United States is hosting it in November of 2023 in San Francisco. India has been an aspirant. India openly actually staked its claim for participating in APEC, and India was denied consistently for various reasons, and the United States did not support actually in 2014 and 2015 when India applied for it. The other confidence building measure on part of United States could be actually integrating India into G8, not just as a permanent invitee or occasional invitee. India is the fifth largest economy at this place. So these are the kind of confidence building measures that will help India regain its, place in the list of world economies. India's GDP is rising consistently. It is expected to surpass that of, Germany, and might become the third largest economy. So that is the place where help is needed. India of 2023 is not India of 1962. China, beware. China has not fought a war since 1979 when it had a skirmish with Vietnam and it got a bloodied nose. Yes, China has built up its military, modernized its military, but India has also transformed. So yes, there is a possibility China may act here and there, but it's not going to get the response of 1962. From India's perspective, and I'm going to quote, this is not the era of war. I'm quoting somebody very important who said it publicly in a public forum in SEO to a very famous world leader, and didn't have any inhibition in saying that. That reflects India's intent. India will continue to exercise its strategic independence while safeguarding its interests. And my characterization of India-US relationship is that it's an ongoing relationship. There will be some, mutual understandings. There will be some mutual differences. We share certain common ideals, but we are in different geographies. Unfortunately, India cannot choose not to be neighbor of China. So there is a compulsion there. In that scenario, the geopolitical responses of India are not going to be in unison with United States geopolitical interventions or priorities. And I think US needs to understand that. And that is what probably Prime Minister Modi will try to explain to President Biden, that yes, we are partners, but we are not partners in holy matrimony. We are just part-time lovers.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee. Now, let me call on Ambassador Pradeep to put after, basically, I see argument for muscle building, argument for changing the laws in the US, argument for being invited to G8 and so on and so forth. Now, let's see what Ambassador Kapur brings to the table. What should Prime Minister Modi do?
Thank you so much, Satish ji. The topic before us today is, should the US and India also discuss bilateral security alliance? The answer, including by the three panelists who have gone before me, is yes, of course. There is no two ways about it. Only the contours have to be defined very clearly. And why do we all say that? Because we feel that it will work to the interests of both India and the US, and also of the world at large. The world today is poised at a very critical juncture in its history. We have gone through a devastating COVID, which was absolutely earth-shattering, impacted all the countries of the world. We are still going through the Ukraine-Russia war, which has impacted again most of the world and the most of the global economies. China's aggression and the threat on Taiwan, also the threat of terrorism, threat of climate change, coming together of the Islamic jihadi and the leftist Marxist forces working together with the wokes, which are both working together for breaking, breaking America forces and the breaking India forces, which are overlapping at this point of time. So how will this alliance help? First of all, it'll provide a free and open Indo-Pacific. It'll provide security on the India-China border immediately. It'll deter China from its other aggressive stances and actions, including in the threats in Taiwan. It'll foster sharing of intelligence between India, US, and the US partners, including the Five Eyes countries. It'll boost very significantly defense cooperation. Defense cooperation is already going on very well between our two countries, but an alliance like this will further boost it very, very significantly. It'll boost economic cooperation between our two countries. India is already the major driver of the global economy. Maximum UPIs in the world are happening in India today, which is almost 35-40% of the global UPIs. It'll boost technological cooperation between our two countries. It'll boost trade. It'll boost investment. Other areas which will also get a massive fillip with this sort of alliance is the cyber security area, the area of space and space security, maritime security, nuclear security, with failed states like Pakistan becoming a very, very major threat in terms of denuclearization requirement. Now, what are the learnings from the past? The trust factor. Both countries need to further augment the trust factor, mostly at the official level, the bureaucratic level, and the political level. At the diaspora level, there is already phenomenal amount of trust, and this can play to the benefit of both the countries. The alliances of the past, what have been the drawbacks, and why has India refused to get into any alliance with any country? Those factors are also very important to understand. The India-Soviet Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation of 1971 was a landmark treaty for India, which helped India very significantly during the problems with Pakistan and the creation of Bangladesh and the India-Pakistan War of 71, and deterring the US naval forces which were parked just outside in the sea in Bangladesh. Public opinion is another very important factor which has to be molded in both the countries to support this sort of alliance. The lessons which are possible to learn from the downsides and the fissures in NATO or in ANZUS or in the Quad or in AUKUS, the Australia, UK, US alliance, would also provide very, very important guidelines for this. As it is, India and the US have many shared values. I do not want to get into those. Those are, repeated ad infinitum by a lot of people. So this alliance, in my opinion, has to be a living document. It has to have a lot of flexibility to adapt to evolving threats and challenges. And there has to be a lot of trust and communication, non-stop communication between the two sides. What are the other related aspects? Well, some of it have already been mentioned, but I'll mention some more. The US has to go all out and ensure that India becomes a permanent member of the UN Security Council. There's no doubt about that. There's no question on that today in anybody's mind. Also, G8, as mentioned by one of the panelists just now, the diaspora of India and the US, like we have here itself, some of the representatives, Shekhar ji, Adityanjee, Ramesh Kapur ji, and a very large number of others are, of course, playing a very significant role, and their role will only increase with such an alliance. And they have to be encouraged to foster that alliance and to foster India-US relations across a whole range of areas. For the US, there's also the aspect of the biggest market in the world, which is currently and the future prospective market, the rural India, with a population of about 900 million, which is more than the population of the Western world or US or the Northern American and South America populations combined, more than Europe or more than the whole of Africa combined. Also, India, the de-dollarization which is happening because of sanctions, the impact of this alliance on securing the US economy from further deterioration. We find banks failing in the US. We find so many retail organizations, shops and organizations closing down, many more under the threat of bankruptcy, threat of recession. The inflation is so high. So all those economic challenges which the developed world is facing and which US in particular is facing, to some extent will be mitigated with this alliance, which is going to be a very significant factor for the US. India has a very strategic location. Now, if US has to have its outreach into the Indo-Pacific, what better country than India? We have Andaman Nicobar, which is right next to the Indo-Pacific. It is in the Indo-Pacific. There's also the, strategic lanes which India dominates and can control even more with a strong alliance with the US. Now, if I just look back at what do the two militaries bring to the table, oh my goodness, that's absolutely phenomenal. They're some of the strongest military forces in the world today, among the top 5, if I have to list. US, India, China, Russia, and I don't know who else, because they are the topmost with the maximum amount of power, military power. India is also being looked at by the Congress for becoming part of NATO Plus. That will be a good step in the direction of having this alliance. And 4 foundational agreements have already been signed between India and the US. So I personally think it is the opportune moment for the India-US relation to become the defining partnership of the 21st century and take the world to a better place. And what better than having a very strong security alliance between the two countries? India has to look beyond its past objections to having security alliances, and US has to look past beyond its template of security alliances, so that both are on the same table, both appreciate each other's concerns, where the other party is coming from, what are the difficulties of the other in terms of getting into a very strong relationship, and accordingly change their outlook and come forward with a new template, which can be a sort of a different template altogether.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kapur. So you talked about a new template and you talked about number of facts. I would say, the facts have been known all along. All these, when you point out, it's not that people don't know. The question is, how do you present them? Second, the question is, when there's a peacetime agreements tend to be very different from when there's a crisis. 71 was a crisis situation when India could, get to the kind of a very significant agreement with Russia at that point in time. So the question is, this is a peacetime situation. We've heard that there's a question of, this is not the era of war. That's perfectly there. But let's not forget, our strength is on the one hand phenomenal. On the other hand, we are only 1/10 of American economy compared to China, which is about to surpass US economy because of its the growth that America basically sponsored in that country. The question is, on every front that we have in terms of our facts, there are issues on both sides, and that conversation has to be had in a, like you said, new template or whatever the template may be, that environment, the new conversation, same facts. How do you initiate that? From that, I would request this time 3 minutes each, Shekharji. So the same facts, new template, and how does the Prime Minister's visit as the state guest trigger that? Is there a way that we can advise that it can be seen? 3 minutes.
So history does not give us many opportunities to do great things. After 550 BC, this is the opportunity has come. Last time there was a sannyasi with a bold vision was 550 BC. His name was Vishnu Sharma. Once again, we have a sannyasi with a bold vision and a strategic thought in India. And he's coming here. And he's going to meet the American president. Now, if you really want to do something, focus on one thing, not everything else. Guru Drona asked Arjun, what do you see? He says, only the eye of the bird. Same way, the most important thing India is facing, we can talk about GDP whole day long, unemployment. Unemployment and the growth of the population is killing India. No matter what we do, how many army we do, if those things are not contained, India is not going anywhere. See? So now, how do you deal with unemployment? The only way is to grow job, manufacturing, and that can only be done by the country which did it to China. Ramesh rightly said that China was also built by the United States, not only Japan and Germany. So we need help to build India. To contain the unemployment, 500 million people without job. Can you sit down and imagine this phenomena? And this is the only country can do, but it cannot do. It cannot take its own resources and get rid of unemployment. Because one is being deflected in the security on the Chinese border and Pakistani border. So it needs the security to be taken care of. And the only way to take care of security is join hands. Like all the developed countries has done, Germany, Japan, France, all of them has come to some defense alliance. And there's nothing, no ego is hurt just because I'm part of the alliance. They're already in part of the alliance with Russia. So if you can have alliance with Russia, why can't we have anything with Japan, Germany, all of them? Now, and Ramesh rightly explained, NATO plus does not mean a part of being NATO. It's basically a tech trade that has been cleared. Now, every time there is a new president, we don't have to go and beg him to give India, the defense technology. So I believe the only thing to focus is growing the economy, creating jobs, because our unemployment and our population growth is a killer, absolute killer. And we cannot do anything about it unless we take care of security.
Thank you, Shekharji. One of the questions that arises is, the focus on employment generation instead of without building capabilities in people to be employees. That is the big challenge in terms of how do you build a nation where people become eligible to be employed in the current environment of how technology is changing, how the world demand is changing. Let's not forget, 950 million people are being spoken about as being given largest of grains as of now today. Effectively, India is an economy of 100 million people who effectively produce about less than the world average in terms of GDP. These facts also are very relevant. If the global GDP is per capita is $2,500, India is about $2,200. That also remains there. Just size of a nation doesn't drive everything. Its ability to participate also drives it. And that's where time after time we have seen many multinationals have talked about the quality of manpower in India beyond the very small percentage is it takes a lot of them to just train them. So that nothing is happening on that account. Second point is entrepreneurship. Do you develop that or not? That will also come into picture. Let me ask you, take it from here, Ramesh Kapur. Ramesh, taking off from where Shekharji is bringing us, how would you take that question instead of your contributions to, making U.S. foreign policy more conducive to India's strengths and so on and so forth? Can you look at this aspect of economy as well? Ramesh, 3 minutes.
You have to unmute yourself, Ramesh,
Okay,
please.
okay, unmuted now. Okay. Thank you for thinking that I'm an expert in the entrepreneur level. Okay, I'm not. Okay, the reality is, yes, I come from 15, 16 generations of business people. Okay, and I understand the basics. And I started the Boston Thai chapter, and at heart, I say I'm a capitalist. Then I'm a Democrat. True, my family is like that. Okay. But I'm not an expert in it. But I want to make another different point at the same time. I want to do that. My suggestion to PM Modi is, okay, when he comes over here, it's fine. All we are doing is taking straws out of the comment that India is making. All right. Oh, this is not time for war. What does that mean? Not time for war. What does that statement mean? Okay. Really, same thing that the United States was saying, oh, India is a major defense partner, right? The reality is, okay, you unfortunately, Modi has done transformational stuff in India, okay, with Kashmir, Hinduism, pride, and constitutional law, something that nobody has done. He has done transformational things. Unfortunately, on foreign policy, he has not done transformation. And this is an opportunity for him to do it. And not listen to his gut instead of listening to his bureaucrats, okay? Because his gut, BJP has always been pro-America, okay? And the first opportunity that BJP got, they failed, right? And what has become, India has become basically banias. And I'm not stereotyping. We know what banias, they are short-term players with increasing the price of making money on what is 10%? What do you are the future, you're trying to get 10% advantage? Those are bania mentality. So what we have to do is, Modi has to do is be transformational. We had him convinced on NATO +6. They were moving away from it, all right? And then all of a sudden, so, you know, everybody says, the reality is, everybody says that, oh, India, United States helped them in the United Nations. As long as China is not there, it has to be unanimous. They're never going to get the Security Council seat, okay? And then we're talking about the Pacific thing that Dr. Adityanjee said. Do you think we do not want India to be part of it? It's China is part of it, okay? All right? And the problem is that when I got a chance to meet Modi for a couple of hours when he was a prime minister, you know, we were trying, you know, Shekhar told him that I could get him his visa. And I'm glad he didn't get his visa because he got elected because of that, not getting his visa by Condoleezza Rice. Okay, so he said he wants to be. I said, how are you going to be world leader? Where is we going to be? He says he wants to be a regional player. That's what he said. Okay, and that's what he has to. Although he's traveling all over the world, giving the impression that he's a world leader. All right. But in reality, in terms of substance, he's not. And believe me, I'm telling you, okay, please, I am blunt to the Americans as I'm blunt to them. And that's how we have got this NATO plus this thing passed. If I was there, if I had, and that day somebody doesn't agree with me or tries to do petty things, okay, I love it. Because I know I have touched the chord, all right? I know I'm the right direction. And this is on both sides, believe me, okay? But one thing I got to say is I know this President Biden for a very long time. There are two things I'm going to tell you, okay? He is pro-India. This is the greatest opportunity that Modi will ever have. I remember when he was vice president going to India, I said, you know, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, how about defense treaty with India? And his eyes lit up. And he said, do you think they'll go along with it? I said, we'll sell it. So this is maybe not the defense treaty. Maybe one, NATO +6 is one from the American side. From the Indian side is the security thing that we are talking about, with United States only, all right? All right. So this is the greatest opportunity that you have. And another thing I'm going to tell you. If China goes to Taiwan, this president will defend. Okay, will defend. And here's the opportunity for once for all, they can fix China completely. India will have to make the decision. And as long as the bureaucrats do not keep cautious things in this prime minister's mind, he will join United States. And I know it for a fact, okay? For the past conversations that I have had with the key people. But the key thing is to make sure that he doesn't listen to his bureaucrats, okay? And just because you have a saffron lungi doesn't mean that you become a BJP, okay? You're still a bureaucrat. Just remember that. And that's what my comments is.
Thank you, Ramesh.
Golden opportunity. You won't come back again because this president will give everything to India, whatever they want. All right?
Okay, thank you, Ramesh. Adityanjee, one way to, when you go to seek something from someone is you bring something to the table. What should India bring to the table from your point of view that will help US offer India what it really wants? What do you think, Adityanjee? 3 minutes.
Okay. I will start with some of the comments Shekharji has made. And I'll say that Prime Minister Modi has laid a very transformational foundation of a knowledge-based economy in India. As you had said that, there's a shortage of qualified workers, skilled workers. If you look at systematically, Prime Minister Modi has worked on all those issues, whether it is Skill India program, whether it is Jan Dhan program, electronic transactions, the UPI transactions. India has risen on top of the world. The number of unicorns that are being started in India, that is phenomenal. If you look at the Science Citational Index, peer-reviewed publications, India is coming now third or fourth in number in those kind of things. So to mistake India of 1947 with India of 2023 is rather a mistaken notion. If one template Prime Minister Modi can offer to President Biden, that is to agree to have actually a bilateral free trade agreement. That will be transformational in the career, in the trajectory of relationship of both countries. And I'll give you an example. Why do we need a bilateral free trade agreement between US and India? United States is not part of the CPTPP, and United States is not in RCEP. India is out of both. Our Quad partners, Japan and Australia, are both in these trade agreements. India and United States are out of those trade agreements. And if we can get our act together and sign a bilateral free trade agreement, that will boost the economy of each other. United States will get a market of 1.4 billion people with a prospering middle class, which is increasing day by day. At this point in time, reckoned to be 500 million people in middle class. So despite the COVID pandemic, despite government's need to take welfare measures to provide free rations, at least we didn't require PL 480. We did not have to go with a begging bowl. We were feeding other nations at that point in time. So India has inner strength and resilience. And the way we can actually supplement each other is in economic realm by signing a bilateral free trade agreement so that we boost each other's economies. United States cannot continue to have China as the manufacturing factory. India would be available, and having a bilateral free trade agreement would be a new template by which we can define the relationship to higher levels.
Thank you, Adityanjee.
This is Gopal Khanna. May I interject? I'm one of the listeners. We've got only 4 minutes left, 5 minutes left.
Can I bring you in a little later? Just one second.
We have only 5 minutes left.
All right.
We
Ambassador
can
Kapur.
go longer. We can go longer.
Ambassador Kapur, my request will be, he talked about, Adityanjee, about free trade agreement. There's a talk of services agreement as well, free movement for services, etc. What do you think is more important? Is it the services or the trade? Ambassador Kapur.
Well, both, of course, very simply, because I have dealt with a lot of these FTAs in my working career as a diplomat in different countries. So what is required between India and US is not an FTA. It is a comprehensive economic cooperation partnership or a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, which is called a CICA. So that is what is required, which includes goods, services, and many other things, protection of investments and no avoidance of double taxation, which already exists, etc., etc. So that is what is required between the two countries. And what I'd like to also point out here, if you permit me, Mr. Satish, is that 25 of the biggest MNCs in the world today are led by Indian origin CEOs. When India and US work together, there is a lot of synergy. And if I hark back to the first 2000 years of the world, for the first 1000 years, the contribution of India to the global GDP in purchasing power parity terms, as per the Economist and the International Monetary Fund and Angus Madison, was 1/3 of the global economy. For the next 500 years, it was more than 25% of the world economy. There are a lot of economists in the world who are now stating that the biggest economy will be India by 2050. Now, we cannot ignore all those facts. Whatever the current situation, somebody has pointed out, and some others have rebutted that. So it is all a very important understanding for the world that the Western economies of the world today are facing very, very serious threats and challenges for their very survival all over Europe. The US is also not in a very good shape, as we can see from the inflation and the unemployment and the sort of people on the streets without houses, etc., which is increasing by hundreds of thousands. So for these countries, what are you faced with? There's a security challenge. China and Russia, and supported by Iran and North Korea and a few other countries on the one side. And the Western world, when you balance out the two sides, whichever side India moves, that will tip the table absolutely in the favor of that side. So for the Western world, there is no other alternative but India to strengthen its own hands, to strengthen its own backyard, to strengthen its own future, to secure its own future. So it's a non-brainer that for the Western world, if I'm an analyst, what are my priorities? What are my strategic interests? Where does my future lie? If I do not partner with India at this juncture, I think it's not just India which is losing the opportunity. The entire Western world is losing the opportunity. So let's not forget that. The market which is coming up in India in the next few years, you are talking about 2,200 being the per capita income of India. What was it a few years back, 10 years back? It was in a few hundred. Now, if it is going at that pace for a country of 1.4 billion, the most populous country of the world today with the greatest population, with an aspirational youth, with a young demographic, where 65% of the people are below 35. So where does the future of the world lie? Where does the future of the world economies lie? Till we appreciate these basic facts that the major driver of the world economy, as per most economists today, is India, and the major driver of the world economy in the future will become more and more India than any other country. These are basic facts which are there on the table, and these have to be appreciated and understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Kapur. I learned one thing very important. Tell the world I am the one they need, and I'll be fine. Thank you. Having said that, I think it's been a great enlightening conversation. Shekharji, thank you for telling us to build muscles. Ramesh, thank you for basically telling us how to handle these processes. Adityanjee, your summation for talking about economy later on, as well as earlier on, basically looking at being invited to G8, etc. was very interesting. And Mr. Kapur, you are the seasoned one, but I learned a lot of lessons. Having said that, thank you very much. I think Prime Minister Modi will do very well, as he has always managed to get his presence felt. And I hope something positive comes out of it. With that, we close this session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gayatri ji, and everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Satish, and all speakers and participants. Thank you.
Thank you.